Recently, someone said to me that some project cars are cool, while other project cars are special. For the last 2 years, we've been hard at work on the Honda-swapped Ferrari, and if you asked me how I'd classify this car, I would say that it is a cool one. It ticks all of the interesting boxes, it's presented a lot of unique challenges, and I don't think that there's anything else quite like it out there, but if you ask if it's inherently special, well, I don't really think that it is. The K24 swapped Ferrari is just the logical answer to a somewhat complex problem, and although it represents my own creative output, which I believe makes it truly unique, it's still just a stepping stone, one build in a line of many to come as I continue down my path. On the other hand, I've got a new project that I've been waiting to introduce. A full year ago, I purchased this car, and unlike the Ferrari, this one is special. It also happens to be the most boring car I've bought in a long, long time, but give me just a few minutes because I want to explain exactly what it is that we're doing here. I truly believe this is perhaps the most important build I've undertaken to date, and if you find yourself invested in the projects that happen on this channel, well, then the next 7 minutes are for you. In 2010, I lived in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and my entire life revolved around one particular car. Most people know this car as Rusty. In one sense or another, this car formed my career, it formed my passions, it formed my hobbies, and most importantly, it formed almost every single friendship that I maintain today. I tell people this often when the topic comes up, but there's only one circumstance in which I can actually prove it. In April of that year, I received this DM on the StanceWorks forums. It says, "My buddy and I drove by your place earlier tonight. I'm sure we looked like total creepers, but he had told me he saw Rusty at some house by the school, so we were curious. Not stalkers, I swear. Just didn't want to intrude, and you look to have guys over." This message was sent to me by Cory Hutchison. I invited him and his buddy Rodney over to check out the car, and then I insisted that if he hung around long enough, I'd convert him from a Honda guy into a BMW guy. From there, it was only a few short months until he was moved in as my college roommate. From that point, Cory was present for nearly every major milestone that followed. Without hesitation, he gave his own blood, sweat, and tears to help me build the car of my dreams, to help see Rusty through into the car it eventually became. And to be clear, that wasn't the only time he did that either. But there is more to life than just cars, because we were also groomsmen at Rodney's wedding. Together we consumed what might be millions of calories worth of Waffle House, and eventually I even convinced him to uproot his life, leave his family behind, and join me in California. Now there is a lot I'd love to tell you about Cory because he is, without question, one of the best souls I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. But I'm a car guy, this is a car channel, and every story for me always comes back to cars. Specifically, it comes back to the first night that I met Cory, when I insisted eventually he'd find himself behind the wheel of a BMW. Perhaps one of my crowning achievements is the fact that it wasn't just one BMW or two, it was several of them. There was the E28 that we pulled out of a field together that he appropriately named Hank the Tank, and there was the E21 that he named Darla. Because although he says he hated that car's stinking guts, I think inside he did truly love that silly little car. There was a jaunt with an E36 M3 and several others as well, but the most important cars to this story are two identical E30s. Cory had two white early model E30 coupes. And to be frank, he beat the absolute shit out of both of them. The first car to Cory was known as the Scuffler, but to the rest of us it was affectionately known as the Tree 30. It earned this moniker because Cory was sliding the car around on the unpaved backroads of Tennessee when he slid off and rolled the car directly into a tree. But this was a minor setback at most. Cory tracked down a complete replacement front end and then welded a sedan C-pillar in place of the coupe C-pillar and had the car back in action in no time. In fact, the car went on to win several regional SCCA rallycross events. Cory absolutely refused to let this car die. The E30 hauled all of Cory's belongings across the United States and back when he moved home. It took him to the very top of Pikes Peak. It got rear-ended and straightened out. It got bent in half after jumping off of Phil Hill at Buttonwillow, but he didn't care. This car did everything. But as said, there was a second white E30 coupe that we all know as the race car. On the surface, it was shockingly similar to the E30, but a second glance would showcase the fact that the race car represented Cory's attempt to improve upon everything that made the E30 so good. From better suspension to better wheels and tires, the 24-valve engine, the roll bar, the fixed back seats, everything went into this car in an attempt to make it better and, more importantly, to make it faster. You see, Cory and I were very competitive. We were both racing flat out to beat the 2-minute mark at Buttonwillow's 13 clockwise layout in our respective E30s at the time. Cory was the better driver, I had the better car, but his race car could change that rapidly. Once he finished the build, he was supposed to drive back out to California so that we could race head-to-head once again to see once and for all who really was the fastest driver with a fair car between us. But as important as these cars were to Cory, there were also other important things in his life. Very important things. In honesty, when he moved from California back to Tennessee, I struggled to comprehend what could be worthwhile. But in time, it did become clear that although the cars and the projects were important, there were other milestones in Cory's life he was seeking to achieve. He was always a family guy at heart, and having a family of his own was the obvious conclusion his path would take him down. But if you haven't connected the dots at this point, I'm never going to know what it's like to beat Cory fair and square to that 2-minute mark. And what's worse is that Cory will never know what it's like to reach the milestones he sought. In September of 2021, Cory succumbed to an autoimmune disease called MDA5. He fought for a year as his body turned against him until eventually he lost his ability to breathe. What's left behind, of course, is a huge group of people that loved him dearly, and just as important are those 2 white E30s. So I began the search, nationwide. I was on the hunt for a white early model E30 coupe to call my own, because I want something that every time I look at it and every time I get behind the wheel, I'm reminded of my best friend. In March of last year, I found the perfect car, an 85 325 ETA. So I called some of my closest friends, had them book tickets, and together we flew to Santa Rosa, California, and drove it home. Now, a full year later, I'm finally ready to show it off. So let's take a look. This is the car that I'm going to call the Cory 30, for obvious reasons, I assume. On paper, it doesn't have a lot going for it. It's got an automatic transmission, maybe one of the worst BMWs ever made. It's got an anemic 121 horsepower, 2.7-liter inline-six under the hood that only revs to 5,000 RPM. It's got questionable paintwork, along with purple faded seats on the interior. It's got yellow brake calipers, and for some reason, someone decided to paint the headlight rings red. Not to mention, this thing's got 270,000 miles on it, or 435,000 kilometers for everyone else. Let me be clear though, I absolutely love it. It's perfect, because I never would have bought this car in any situation prior. The questionable tape lines on the fender alone would have had me walking the other direction, but Cory, on the other hand, never would have let this car escape his grip. And that's exactly what this project is truly about. I'm not trying to build a replica of either of his cars. I'm trying to build a car that reminds me of him, and I want to approach it with the same relaxed mindset that I know Cory would have. I don't want to sweat the small stuff, the dings, the dents, the imperfections, the little things that would have driven me crazy in any build prior. Instead, this one's all about those imperfections, starting with perhaps the most meaningful one. Now, I'm not what you would call a superstitious or spiritual guy, but when I saw this particular detail on the E30, I knew in that moment that I was going to buy it and take it home. Remember a few moments ago when I said Cory rolled his car into a tree and then welded a sedan C-pillar onto his coupe? To be clear, it doesn't fit. Here's the repair so you can see what I'm talking about. It's not a good repair, but again, Cory didn't care. It was about getting the car back on the road. Obviously, this C-pillar on his car is a battle scar. On my E30, there happens to be a mark, or a blemish, if you will, on the exact same C-pillar in the exact same spot. Now again, I'm not superstitious, but I know that if Cory had seen this mark on this car, he would have said, I have to have it. It's a perfect sign, if you will. So again, I had no excuses but to buy this car and build it, just like Cory would have. But before we actually dive into this E30, we've got to start with a different one. That's because I bought two E30s, and this one, as you can probably tell, is a total basket case. No one's asking me, but I'd say this one's not worth saving, although others would probably feel differently. Instead, I'm really just looking to cannibalize this thing for parts. First on the list is that funny contraption sitting on the floorboard. That is a manual pedal box. And then there's what lurks under the transmission tunnel, which is a manual transmission. Now really that's all I was after when I bought this car, but then we found out there was more under the hood. Although this car began as the same 325e that mine did, it is partway through an engine swap. Now this engine is only a 2.5 liter, but in BMW terms, that's more desirable because this 2.5 liter outputs considerably more horsepower than our 2.7. It has what's known as the 885 cylinder head, and it's a direct bolt-in swap into our car. Not to mention the fact that this is the exact same engine Cory swapped into the Tree 30. Now, I don't really want the car itself, so I told my buddy Byron if he was willing to lend a hand in ripping it apart, he could just have it. Right next door is his shop, Leichtbau, which specializes in classic European cars, and we did the disassembly there, mostly so that this husk of an E30 would be in his way once we're done, not mine. Thankfully, because this car was partway through an engine swap, nothing was really connected, so the transmission itself was able to just drop right out. Now, the donor car does include pretty much everything that we need to manual swap the white car, but we will have to track down an appropriate drive shaft, and ideally we'll find a limited slip differential to pair with it. Just like the transmission pull, pulling the engine was probably the easiest it could possibly be. We didn't have to worry about disconnecting anything from the wiring to the cooling system to AC. It was ready to come right out. Now the M20B25 isn't what I'd call a powerhouse. It produces about 170 horsepower. Frankly, I'm not even sure this will be the final engine for our build, but it'll make the car a lot more enjoyable to drive in the interim. Now, I thought in the spirit of Cory, what I should do is just slam the engine into the car and send it on down the road, but given that I don't know anything about it, I want to be responsible. So the Leichtbau guys ordered up every single service item we could possibly throw at this thing, from all of the gaskets, including the head gasket, to the timing belt, the water pump, a new clutch, flywheel, you name it. Because I want to drive this thing with the same lack of mechanical sympathy as Cory would, it needs to be up to the task. But our upcoming plans include some cosmetic improvements as well. I bought a set of OEM Euro grills and new kidneys to refresh the front end of the car, and we'll pair that with a set of proper headlights. To pair with the engine, I tracked down this cool aftermarket downswing gauge cluster. The tachometer revs to the appropriate redline for our new engine, and it includes some cool tidbits like the service lights having been upgraded to perform as shift lights. Underneath the car, I want it to handle, so I've got H&R working on a custom set of coilovers just like they built for our E30 M3. But it'll be a while till these are done, so in the interim, we're going to run a set of H&R race springs. And if we're going to drop it, of course we need a set of wheels. I've said before that wheels make or break any build, and for this one I needed something special. So thankfully my buddy Nick Foster came through and provided these absolutely incredible 4-lug magnesium Alpina splits. They use BBS Motorsport hardware, so we'll be able to size them perfectly to the car, and I'd like to refinish them in silver centers with a black lug pocket, a perfect tribute to their original finish. Now, for those of you that aren't BMW fanatics, I'll be clear in stating that these are probably the single coolest and rarest 4-lug wheels I could possibly bolt onto this car. They are the BMW Holy Grail, and I couldn't think of anything more fitting. Next in line of stockpiled parts, I've got a set of Euro bumpers, complete with mounts and all of the trim. If you're not familiar with how drastically these transform the look of the car, just compare my rear bumper to Khalil's Euro rear bumper mounted to his E30. This is the way the E30 was originally designed, and it's how the rest of the world got it, but crash safety regulations here in the United States meant that we got the ugly quote-unquote diving boards. The same goes for the front of the car as well. If we compare it to Khalil's, you can see just how awful the front end of a US spec E30 is by comparison. Khalil's going to be working on his E30 at the same time I'll be working on mine, because our eventual goal is to drive these up the West Coast to the E30 picnic later this summer. If we look down the parking lot towards his shop, Leichtbau, and ignore the bright red M1 in the parking lot, we'll see Byron's E30 too. It's another great example of how amazing Euro bumpers can look, but what's special about his car is what's under the hood. He's most of the way through a 350 horsepower NA built K24 swap. It's been in progress for a long time, but he wants to finish this up by the end of summer as well. He's going to be joining us on our trip north. So let me know if you guys want project updates on his car as we also chip away at mine. Because come the end of summer, we're going to be ripping these cars up the coast. So that's my E30 intro video. If you made it this far into the episode, now you understand what I'm here to do and why I'm excited about it. This project means a lot to me, and man, I'm so thrilled to finally be diving into it. I've been holding off on this thing for a full year. Now, some of you guys are wondering, where are Cory's E30s? There were 2 of them. They didn't just vanish. Where are they at in this whole story? Well, we're going to touch upon that in the next episode. There's a lot of storytelling yet to do, and with any luck, one of them, the race car, is going to make its way out here to California. Me and Cory's brothers are going to get it fixed up, and with any luck, they will have their first on-track experience behind the wheel of that car, and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to see if I can break that 2-minute run in that race car the way Cory would have wanted it. So, there's a lot of stuff happening, not only with my car, but with those E30s as well. I'm excited to work with Cory's family and try to keep those cars running, driving, and keep them from rotting away, because that's what's important to me. Those cars represent my best friend. So, I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This one was an emotional one, but I'm excited about it. I'm so pumped. Hope you guys are too. Enough rambling. I'll catch you guys next week, next episode. I don't even know what I'm doing yet. Probably the E36, so I'll see you then.